I'm really excited. We've got Shauna Cole joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me today, Brian. My name is Shauna Cole. I'm the founder of Career Interrupted, which is a content channel focused on career advice and diversity and inclusion. I've got about 15 years professional HR experience, and I also teach courses in communications and job search at the university level. And I'm so excited to be here to chat with your audience today about a personal passion of mine, and that is LinkedIn.
I can't say I'm a LinkedIn expert, so I look forward to hearing your tips today, and I'm sure my viewers are as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So Brian, what about you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Brian, founder of 101mentoring.com, the YouTube channel /101mentor. And, as you know, there are a lot of career coaches in this space. We try to be a little bit different, bringing in that executive leadership experience that I have in the consumer packaged goods industry, trying to understand what would leadership, the executive level, the CEO, what would they recognize in candidates? And then how do we tweak the resume, cover letter, interview, and all the career search goodness? How do we tweak it to that point of view in addition to typical HR aspect of it? So we are talking LinkedIn today, and I know that this is a very popular platform. I think it's growing every year, like tremendous numbers. People aren't using it to its full capacity. Maybe if it's possible, could you explain to us why you feel LinkedIn is such a powerful platform?
I think there's a couple things. First of all, it's so much less competitive than many of the other social media platforms. So it's not like trying to compete for visibility on a place like Instagram or whatever. You can really, really stand out on LinkedIn because the stats are somewhere around only 2% of users are actually putting content out there. So that's a huge opportunity for folks who are looking for jobs, even folks who are looking to start a business, make new connections. It's just plain a lot easier to stand out than it is on other social platforms. And likewise, folks who actually make the decisions are on LinkedIn. So most of the users on this platform are mid to senior level professionals who have authority for hiring decision. And what I see time and time again is all of this ends up being missed opportunities for job seekers.
Do you feel that in this day and age that people are still intimidated by the LinkedIn platform, or are people just going on there but fairly lazy with using the platform?
We spend all this time to kind of figure out how to creep and find information on Facebook or Instagram. Everyone becomes kind of like this detective. And in that, you're actually accumulating this skill set in that platform. I don't know if we think about that regularly, but you're becoming an expert user at it. But when it comes to LinkedIn, for some reason, there seems to be this sort of associated fear factor on there. Oh my gosh, what if I post this and my employer sees it or whatever? And it's really a disservice to the job seeker. We'll talk about really the number one reason why job seekers aren't taking full advantage of the platform. And it's really, really tied to understanding what the individual's goals are in the first place.
To that point, let's get into that first tip. Why don't we build off that?
So tip number one for LinkedIn is to know why you're actually on LinkedIn. It sounds so basic, right? But when I work with clients, what I see time and time again, it's I don't know what to put in my headline. I don't know what I should include in my summary. I don't know what to put in this profile. If we take a step back and first say, okay, what's my reason for being here? You can then actually start to target your profile and all the information that you're putting in that profile to achieve that said goal. So this is really, really relevant for anyone who is looking for work. If you're looking for work, create a LinkedIn profile that targets recruiters. A big mistake I see on LinkedIn when it comes to folks who are looking for jobs is they put these generic statements sort of open to work's a good example, open to work, currently seeking new opportunities or whatever. Never in my life when I was recruiting for a position did I go to LinkedIn and go, I'm going to look for a bunch of unemployed people, right? Because you intuitively want to search on the job title to find a person that can do it. So number one thing that job seekers need to do is know why they're there and then target all of those activities to achieve said goal.
That ready to work hashtag, I get it. But at the same time, no one's looking for a candidate that's unemployed, realistically, or at least there's that stigma, right? Like there's a reason why some people are unemployed, and do I want to bring them on board? So what about if the viewers watching this and they're like, but that's the reason why I'm here, is to find a job? Is there an example scenario that you've worked with your clients on where you're like, here's how you want to position yourself based on why, or here's an example why? Is there something that you could give for the viewers?
The number one thing that you can do as the job seeker is put yourself in the recruiter's shoes. Like if you're putting currently open to opportunities or seeking work or whatever, me and Brian are going to find you because we're searching for people, right? To bring into our coaching practice. So you're really targeting us as opposed to the recruiter. So what you need to do is get creative and think about, you know what that dream job is, ideally, or you're going to work with someone to figure it out. So you have that dream job in mind. And then you need to say to yourself, okay, let's be creative and think this through. What is that recruiter going to do when they sit down with their coffee to go search on LinkedIn? What are they physically going to type into that field? Some great ways to start to figure that out is to use the job postings that you're actually targeting in your job search to help inform things like your headline and your about section. When you go through job postings, you're going to find awesome keywords, right? You're going to find great descriptors. Don't be shy to use those sorts of tools that are available to you as inputs to your LinkedIn profile. So do your research, but it always comes back to knowing why you're there, what you're trying to achieve in the first place. So tip number 2 is to actually fill out your profile, right? Because we've all gone to that LinkedIn profile and you're like, oh, here's Shauna. She doesn't have an about section. Her work experience isn't filled out. And the profile is kind of like a ghost town. And that's really like doing you no favors in terms of your overall job search. So keep thinking of LinkedIn as this sort of search engine that the recruiter is looking for people in. If you don't have the information to show up in searches, you're not going to show up in searches. And in turn, you're not ever going to hear from that recruiter because they don't know you exist. So fill out your profile. You'll see on LinkedIn in your dashboard, sort of midway through that screen, that you've been assigned kind of low, medium, or all-star status in terms of profile completeness. At the very least, you want to aim for that all-star status. I want you to know that even though you fill out your profile today, like, oh, I don't really feel great about this section. That's okay. It's very much a living thing that you can go back and change and tweak over time. But at the very least, you want to reach for that all-star status. That really does wonders in terms of your overall credibility. So I think of it like this. Imagine candidate A. Candidate A shows up on LinkedIn with a nice complete profile. They've got some detail about their work experience. Maybe they've even put some files under their featured section so you can physically see their work. And then you have candidate B who has an incomplete profile. They've got a photo, maybe sort of some half-written title. And it's really that ghost town sort of effect. Now, these candidates have the same skill set. These candidates both excelled in the interview process. I don't know about you, but I want to be candidate A. So when that recruiter starts looking me up online, I want to show up in a really intentional and meaningful way that's going to boost my candidacy kind of at every turn.
I will say that LinkedIn is very intimidating, right? Like there's just so much content that one could put in there. I've spent a lot of time on my LinkedIn over the years. Like you said, it's a living document, if you will, that you would update over time. How much time would you expect a typical newbie to spend that initial time to get that all-star status, just roughly?
You're in the job search anyways. You've probably spent some time and invested in time in completing your resume. So I think in that case, you could probably whip through filling out your LinkedIn profile in an hour, right? You could hop on there, spend some time, take the data from your resume, populate it in your LinkedIn profile, tweak some things in terms of the about section, do some keyword research, probably reasonably within sort of an hour time frame. More serious you get about it though, you can start to invest additional pockets of time. So say you've got that all-star status, almost go back. And if you are an active job seeker, what have you learned through the interviews that you've gone through? Are you detecting that there's a specific objection or a specific skill that employers are poking at that you're like, I feel like I'm not doing a great job at meeting that? What can you do in your online presence, on your LinkedIn profile, to show them that you've got that skill?
There's a lot of us out there that only updates the LinkedIn profile when it's time to find a job. You want to nurture it over time, and regardless of when you need it. I think that investing in that would be very helpful. As you were talking through it, the other tip, and maybe your thoughts too, is I think there's a way you can turn off the updates on your LinkedIn settings, so that if you are changing the headline, if you are changing your work experience or tweaking that, it's not going to notify your network every time you're making those updates. I learned that lesson a long time ago, but I thought it was an important one.
I feel like there's maybe some residual trauma from that people are like, oh my gosh, I'm just like updating my employment year on this job because it was wrong or whatever. And it goes out and tells everybody, and you're like mortified because you're that annoying person.
Yeah.
Spend some time in your settings as well. And there's literally a toggle that you can just turn off that's like, do not notify my network. This is not important enough. Yeah.
I think some viewers may be wondering, okay, well, there's the filling out of the profile, and then there are other profiles that are filled out as well, but stand out. Is there like the top one thing that they can do? What's that point of differentiation? I think you've hinted at some of those things already, but maybe just a reminder to the viewers of what's a standout profile versus a decent but completed profile.
So absolutely, you got to have the bases covered. You got to have the work experience there. But a standout profile, when you hop onto someone's profile and you're like, wow, this is so good, it's because you want to spend some time there. There's probably some stuff that looks nice. So a standout profile not only is well written, but it's got some really, really great, compelling visuals on it too. So I think of things that are so simple to do, like the banners. So many people skip that step, like that cover photo piece. You can go to free websites like canva.com and create a beautiful custom banner. Just imagine, like, I get all fired up. I like that banner on your LinkedIn profile, matching like the fonts and everything on the header of your resume, and creating like this complete cohesive brand for your job search. So to me, it's like you've got a beautiful banner. You are leveraging in the profile, there's an option to feature some items. So if you have some sort of presentation that you can share, always be aware of confidentiality, but you can probably edit some stuff out and make it work. You could share a video file of yourself, and all these things create visuals on the profile, like in thumbnails. And it just makes it so much more appealing because you can quickly scan and kind of see what someone's all about instead of reading this kind of long drawn out about section and sifting through all the experience. So I think being aware of what your profile looks like as well, and using images to really make it pop. So tip number 3 is use your LinkedIn profile to show the recruiters you can do the things, not just tell them. So quite often, I mean, we try to do things on our resume, like use specific performance indicators and demonstrate our results and accomplishments to show recruiters that we can do the things. But LinkedIn is so powerful in that you can take it to the next level and demonstrate your skill set in a really, really tangible way. I think of this as a great opportunity for someone who's in marketing. So if you tell me that you are like a great designer, you're an amazing designer, and I pop over to your LinkedIn profile and there's none of like those images I talked about, right? You're not really taking full advantage of the platform. So if you're going to tell me on your resume that you're a great designer, why not physically show me you're a great designer on your LinkedIn profile by having that standout cover image as an example. I work with a lot of students who come from different countries, who have different names and different accents, and who are up against a lot of different stuff in the job search process. So I've seen students who are getting screened out, and I've been behind those doors, and they go, I can't pronounce this guy's name, so I'm going to screen him out of this process because he cannot speak English. Like, a recruiter's potentially making that assumption. I'm not making a statement about that being right. It's absolutely not. But it's a reality of what some people are up against. Now imagine that student who's an excellent communicator, by the way, takes the time to create a video of themselves and puts it on LinkedIn, and that recruiter shows up to their LinkedIn profile, that bias is blown away, it's gone. And that student who has maybe faced some bias in the process has actually had an opportunity to overcome the process simply by proving them wrong with that video. So don't tell. I mean, it's an important thing to state in our profile that we have strong English proficiency and to state that in our resume as well. But don't just tell. You can actually use that profile to show the recruiter as well. And getting back to your point around what actually makes a standout profile, it's stuff like this.
What about a role like payroll, or like, you know, in my world, I'm in the quality assurance, regulatory affairs, very administrative, or auditing, like that type of stuff. How do we show those skills? I
mean, consultants always have some sort of cool looking PowerPoint, right? Like, it's just like you worked on some sort of project where there was some sort of PDF document or like a clear output from the project, right? Like there was a deliverable. Those are the sorts of things that you can show on your profile. Even an engineer, I think of, you've probably worked on some really complicated reporting and metrics that you were responsible. How did you lay that all out? Again, always keep confidentiality in mind, but what can you go to your toolkit? You've done stuff. What stuff have you done that you can adjust or modify to put on your LinkedIn profile? I'd say as well, like think about activities that you were involved in. Think about things that you worked on that demonstrate other competencies that employers looking for. Maybe teamwork. Maybe you were part of the student representative council in university, and maybe you've got a piece of work that makes sense to showcase on your profile from that experience as well.
You know, building off your tips, I thought maybe I could share a couple of mine, or at least some thought. And please feel free to jump in. Your point of view, your experience would be very helpful for all the viewers as well, and for me. So, and this builds off your first tip, like knowing your why, right? And it comes back to, you know, what is the intention of our LinkedIn profile? Are we trying to get a new role? You know, maybe we just came out of school and now we're looking for a new career, or are we thinking about a career pivot? Or is it just to get eyeballs on our profile, and then over time, hopefully the right role lands at our desk? I think it's really important to get that clarity. And I don't think a lot of people in my circle understand that or have appreciated this. And so they just put in whatever it is that they've done or the task they've done in their role. It feels mediocre. And whereas if someone's like saying, okay, I want to do a career pivot, now it's like, how do you position yourself? How do you position your content or all the stuff that you've done, but in point of view or the frame of this new role?
Again, knowing your why, knowing what you're trying to target becomes really, really key. And also, in some cases, it's going to be appropriate to perhaps bring in a little bit of a personal lens as well. Because let's be real, often when we're making a career pivot, it's because like there's been a change in personal circumstance. You've had like an aha moment at work that something is like not feeling right. Often those career transitions and those pivots are related to something emotional, right? What I would say is if this feels right to you, is know your story, know your origin story. Yeah. So on my LinkedIn profile, I basically tell the story because I can point to one specific moment in my career that made me think I wanted to do things differently and better. So I tell that story on my profile. Do you have a couple of lines in your story? If that approach makes sense for you, that's one idea on how to explain the transition. The reality is some industries, some fields, and some individuals, depending on their preferences and background, are like, nope, not a chance. Don't want to talk about that at all in a professional context. So then you can try to tell that story from your professional experience lens. What drove you in that previous role, that the work, what type of that work wasn't engaging that led you to make the decision? But I think a personal story can be quite compelling and also memorable. But at the end of the day, you need to do what you're comfortable with.
You know, at the end of the day, it comes down to the employer just wanting to know, like, hey, what do you want? And can I give that to you, right? Like, are you going to be happy in this company? If you are thinking about a career pivot, we just want to understand the situation behind that so we don't run into another scenario 6 months from now where you want to leave. I think that's really what it comes down to. We want, as someone that's looking for a candidate, they want to understand that. The second idea or thought here that I'd like to share is just be aware of your LinkedIn network and know who can see your profile. And that kind of goes to the point of, if you are doing a career transition, if you are seeking out new opportunities, just maybe take a look at your current profile and see, okay, who could see my profile? I mean, if your current manager can see that you've completely changed your profile, you've got a new headline, you've got a ready to work hashtag, right? Like, that's not going to make you look good, or at least there's going to be alarm bells, something to be very cognizant of, and just making sure, okay, if I am going to tailor my profile or tweak it, how do I do it in a way where it won't set off those alarm bells? Any thoughts there, Shauna?
You can put right on your profile, like open to recruiters. It's something along those lines, but you can actually show that you're open to work opportunities with a setting on your profile. It literally, it will be on your home screen as soon as you're there. It says open to, and then you select it.
It only notifies recruiters. I just wanted to make that clear to the viewers. Yeah. It doesn't notify your entire network, just recruiters that are searching.
The thing is, you can even set it so that people, the recruiters in your company can't see you, right? Like, if you're not going to look inside the company. So be aware of that setting. The other thing I would say is even though not everyone who updates their LinkedIn profile and pretties it up and adds information to it, or not everyone is necessarily looking for work. So I feel like if your employer is going to bully you around it a little bit, for sure. On the one hand, you don't want to ruffle any feathers, but on the other hand, it's really not any of their business if you're not out there like, my employer sucks, I hate my boss, right? Yeah. That's a whole different story. You can even think about, okay, what if I was approached by my employer because my boss noticed that my LinkedIn profile was looking really great? A suitable response to your manager might be, I'm looking to build up my online brand. Thanks for your interest. Do you have any feedback on it? You don't have to tell them that you're looking for work. There's nothing dishonest about that. The fact of the matter is, it's not their business. It's your life, and they don't need to know what's up with every decision that you do make. I would not say, oh, I'm not going to update my LinkedIn profile because I don't want my boss to see. No, because that's going to do a disservice to you. By updating your profile, you're opening yourself up to a whole nother world of possibilities. You're building your credibility. You're potentially going to get inbound messages from recruiters. It's worth it, but you've got to protect your current job by knowing what you're going to say to your manager if you do get approached.
The last thing that I wanted to bring up was, if you're new to LinkedIn, you want to build in those connections right away. I would say target 500 connections. I just put that number out there. My point of view is, the more first degree connections you have, the more second degree and third degree connections you would going to have. Algorithm's going to help you as well. They'll know that you are someone that's connecting with a lot of people. You'll see more feeds. You can comment on those feeds, those second and third degree feeds as well. Get more eyeballs as a result to your profile, or that you can connect with these people either through a direct message or some other means. You want to make sure that you spend the time to do the profile, but also now start actually connecting with people and your point, with recruiters or with potential companies, contacts, or colleagues in your industry. Any thoughts there?
I can't quite articulate what it is, but there is a certain notion of credibility that goes with when you've got the 500 plus connections. There just is. I think of this as being particularly relevant for folks who are perhaps moving to a new market area, and they might not have a solid network of local people. If you've got that connection base behind you and the 500 plus, that positively impacts your overall credibility. I would say most important thing to do when you're working towards that 500 plus connection is to add a note every single time. So you can go on LinkedIn and I can just be like, okay, I'm just going to send this to Brian. And then Brian goes, who is this? Why is she inboxing me? The right thing to do is to take a moment to send a custom note to that person. Hey, Brian, we're both really interested in the field of career transition. Would you like to connect so we can learn from each other? Brian is much more likely to accept my connection request with that approach as opposed to a blind request with no real context. Imagine doing that at a networking event. Imagine just walking up to someone and saying like, hey, like, I don't know why, but let's be friends. I have no real ask of you. It doesn't do anything to build a relationship there. So I think when you're working to build those connections, most people are going to accept if you take a moment to demonstrate what the value of that connection is. Now that you've got all these connections, please do not show up in their inboxes asking them for jobs. But think about these new connections as new relationships. You want to date for a little bit before you propose marriage, right? So you want to get to know these connections, and some of the ways to do that are through inbox messages or commenting on their content. So I would say just be very aware of that and approach the platform from this place of wanting to bring value, not from this place of take. Because I got to be honest, like, it's really uncomfortable for me when I get a message from someone that I don't know, I've not met, and they're like wanting me to hire them. And I'm like, but I don't even have a job posting. Like, it's really misguided.
What would be an example of a good message?
If you can ever find like something in common, like a common thread with the person you're looking to connect with, you want to call that out in the message. Personalize the message, right? To
your point too about that relationship, it's not about getting the job. It's playing the long game. That's what I say to people in my network. It's playing the long game. It's about, like you said, offering value over time and being like hovering around their network over time so that you're always top of mind. With great recruiters, they want you in their Rolodex. I'm dating myself by saying that. And so when the perfect opportunity comes, they know exactly who to bring on board. And hopefully that's you. How can people work with you and maybe give a little bit of background in terms of the services you provide?
I'm on YouTube at Career Interrupted, where I'm also offering career resources and advice and tips and all that good stuff to help you advance your professional career. Also on LinkedIn at Shauna Cole. And I'm always sharing content on LinkedIn as well.
Well, thank you, Shauna. I really appreciate the time today.